Vikings were raiders who left trails of terror, especially for the women of conquered foes. What Vikings did to the wives of defeated warriors wasn't mere brutality. It was a calculated descent into hell, stripping away everything that made them human. Curiosity gnaws at you now, doesn't it? What fates awaited these women, torn from their homes? Tonight, we unearth the truth from ancient sagas and buried bones. We romanticize Vikings as heroes, yet history paints them as slavers. Their long ships weren't just for trade, they were vessels of abduction. As the Annals of Ulster chronicle, in 821 AD near Dublin, Vikings seized a great booty of women. No mercy, no hesitation. They struck fast, villages burned, husbands slain, wives dragged away in chains. If you value documented history like this, raw and unfiltered, hit subscribe and drop a comment. Where are you watching from? The North was not just about raiding, it was about taking. Land, silver, lives. The sources are clear. Captives were currency, and women were the most coveted coin. The sagas do not shy from the aftermath. They cut to the bone, and then they keep going. As Njál's saga shows, victories end with burnings, hostage-taking, and forced marriages, soft words for brutal tools. Law tells us what a society fears and what it accepts. Iceland's Gragas and later Scandinavian law codes reveal something cold. Women could be married as property transfers. Widows could be packaged into alliances, and children of captive women had uncertain standing unless a powerful man claimed them. The philosopher in the Longhouse was prophet. The slave trade was not a rumor, it was a machine. As scholars of the Viking Age and trade networks note, Dublin, Hedeby, and Birka thrived on human traffic. Arabic dirhams flowed north in exchange for people driven south. As historian Elsa Rosedal and archaeologist James Graham Campbell outline, the scale was continental. Frankish, Slavic, Irish, and Anglo-Saxon captives cycling through Norse markets. Rosedal, the Vikings. Graham Campbell, the Viking world. Silence is also a source. The sagas often reduce a woman's capture to a line, and they took the women, full stop. Behind that line are knights without mercy. Behind that line is power reshaped from flesh. Arab accounts do not look away. Ahmed ibn Fadlan and Ibn Rusta report Slavic and Norse traders selling girls as concubines and slaves. Even the skaldic poems, wrapped in metaphor, admit that women were spoils of war. When the shield wall broke, the market opened. A coastal ring fort burns in the rain. The smoke tastes like salt and iron. A girl, 15 maybe, clutches a wooden icon of a saint as longships grind the shallows. There is no speech here, only the grip of a hand on her hair, the tilt of a blade under her chin, the translation of value from daughter to cargo. She is marched to a ship, gagged, not for noise, but for prices. As Norse annals and Irish chronicles attest, like the Annals of Ulster, raids took women and children as priority spoils. What did the Vikings do to the wives of defeated warriors? They erased the word wife. They wrote chattel, and then they wrote profit. Not every captive disappeared into a far market. Some were bargaining chips. The sagas describe hostage-taking as strategy. Women became human treaties. Keep the widow alive, and the land might pay. Refuse, and the widow's fate becomes a message. Archaeology backs the traffic. Isotope analyses at sites like Dublin show non-local women buried with Scandinavian goods. Lives uprooted, identities rewritten. Birka graves mix Norse brooches with Slavic ornaments, hybrids of coercion and adaptation. But there were darker rooms in this house, rooms where terror was not just byproduct, but policy, ritualized public cruelty designed to cauterize resistance. Back to the story, what happened next will chill you. A jarl's hall rattles with song. 2 torches spit resin. A young widow, taken from a Pictish stronghold, stands before a lawman, a priest of convenience, and the man who killed her husband. The marriage is swift. The laughter is slower. This was not uncommon. Forced marriage cemented control over land and lineage. The widow's body became the deed. As recorded in the Orkneyinga saga, Norse jarls married into local aristocracy, sometimes with alliances, sometimes at sword point, folding conquered bloodlines into Norse power. She is given a new name. She is given a key. The key is to a chest that she does not own. The chest holds her dowry, which is also her ransom, which is also her cage. Set aside romance, consider logistics. In the Viking emporium of Dublin, slave pens stood near the quays, as indicated by analytic references and the density of trade goods. Silver scales, weights, broken brooches, and women, priced by age and health. The Arab geographer al-Yaqubi mentions Norse raiders ferrying captives. Coins from the Caliphate found in Scandinavia are the ledger entries of human commerce. Birka's trading district yields evidence of restraints and commerce tools. The business model was efficient. Harrow a coast, cull the men, convert the rest. We step into the saga fog. The blood eagle, debated, contested, maybe more metaphor than practice, hangs like a threat above the defeated. As told in fragments across Orkneyinga saga and skaldic lore, the execution is less important than the message. Your body is a billboard. At dawn, the wives are brought to watch, not to honor the dead, but to destabilize the living. Trauma as governance. Ritual cruelty as policy. Whether the blood eagle was real or rhetorical, the psychological weapon was the same. Watch what we can do, then imagine what we will do to you. The women understand. They always do. In Norse society, children born of captive women could be acknowledged or not. Acknowledgement meant entry into a lineage, inheritance, protection. Refusal meant limbo. As the laws and sagas show, a man's word could lift or crush a life with a sentence. The deep-minded in Laxdæla saga maneuvers marriages and kin ties with icy calculation. The sagas glow with power around the hearth, but that glow has shadows. Children of foreign mothers become tools in rivalries, held close or cast aside. A whisper from a chieftain decides tomorrow. Not all roads lead west. The Volga route draws us like a black river. Ibn Fadlan writes of the Rus, Norse traders and raiders on the great rivers, trafficking, sacrificing, selling. He describes a slave girl at a chieftain's funeral, forced into a ritual death, a chilling, contested window into sexual coercion and ritualized violence. Ibn Fadlan was the eyewitness. He saw the slave. He saw the funeral. Whether Scandinavians or hybrid Rus, the pattern is unmistakable. Women as wealth. The dirhams, silver coins stamped with Kufic script, pile up in Scandinavian hoards like frost. Each coin is a name someone lost.
A village tries to buy safety with silver. The Viking leader smiles and takes the purse. Then he takes the headman's wife. Then he takes the headman's house. The smoke writes the contract new. Frankish chronicles, like the Owls of St. Bertain, record Nordmen seizing women despite tribute, oaths as quick to break as oars are quick to bite water. The lesson is brutal. Paying off wolves does not make them shepherds. She is dragged to the ships. She learns the rhythm of the oar by the rhythm of her breath. She measures time by bruises. Yes, there were women who fought and traveled. Graves like BJ 581 at Birka suggest a female warrior of high status with weapons and gaming pieces, argued by archaeologists Charlotte Hedenstierna Johnson et al. But for every armed woman, 100 unarmed suffered. The hero image is a bright coin. Turn it over, and you see the market stamp. We must hold both truths, agency and atrocity, trade and terror. Sagas sing, archaeology whispers, law codifies what the songs won't say.
The decision tree is pragmatic. If no ransom, sell. If no buyer, keep. If she resists, break her. As David M. Perry and Matthew Gabriel argue in Studies of Medieval Warfare, sexual violence was strategic as well as opportunistic. Viking practice was part of a wider medieval pattern. Imagine a farm in Iceland, year 980. Snow is a wall. Inside, a thrall woman wakes before the sun, milks in the dark, weaves in the smoke. She eats last. She speaks last. She is punished first. The laws allow it. Corporal punishment of slaves was routine. Manumission happened, but rarely and with strings, dependence, debt, and stigma. Archaeology finds worn bones, tethering rings, and work-scarred joints. The wives of dead warriors, if they survived, could be folded into this grind. From ring-wearer to rope-bearer in a season. The temple at Uppsala, seen through Adam of Bremen's distant Christian lens, reeks of blood and gold. Foreign captives hang in his words as offerings, a morbid inventory. Historians debate details, but the picture is not gentle. A captured chieftain's wife is led before the idols. She is offered a choice that is not a choice. Serve the gods as a temple thrall, body a public possession, or be sent east with traders. She chooses east. The ship does not feel like mercy. Because wives anchor communities, they hold property, they keep memory, they tie sons to fathers with stories at the fire. Break the wife, and you break the lineage. Break the lineage, and you break resistance. It's not random cruelty, it's calculus. As Norse poets knew, fame is the only life after death. Erase the widow's voice, and you erase the dead man's fame. This is annihilation by proxy. Not all bows bent. In Lex Saga and others, women like Gudrun Osfisforsdottir drive vengeance across generations, words as knives. In Orkneyinga Saga, noble women maneuver jarls into wars or peace. Agency cuts both ways, but it cuts in rare hands. A captured wife might win safety with cunning, bearing a son the captor wants, bartering silence, hoarding favors. Survival is a craft, but even craft cannot turn a cage into a crown. Missionaries came. Kings converted. Did cruelty retreat? Not at once. Norse codebooks in Norway and Iceland condemned some forms of slavery and sexual violence, yet the trade persisted into the 11th century. Old habits die with profit, not with sermons. Over time, markets shifted, status hardened, and manumission increased in some zones. But for the wives of defeated warriors in the Viking Age proper, the new god did not arrive fast enough. Birka graves with foreign isotopic signatures, Dublin's cramped burial grounds for non-locals, rope wear on bones, trauma patterns consistent with restraint. At Trelleborg and other fortresses, the scale of militarized control suggests organized systems to process captives. At Kaupang, the weights and scales cluster where trade lived and where human value was measured like grain. Archaeology rarely names a wife, but it maps her absence across miles, across languages, across lives that end far from the home fires they tended. Frost needles the harbor. A ring of men forms. A woman stands at the center. Hair cut short as a mark of capture. The auctioneer speaks in half a dozen tongues: Slavic, Norse, Frankish. Value moves like breath from face to face. She once braided her husband's beard. Now she is turned, hip, teeth, wrists, like a horse.
A buyer tests the word obedient in his mouth. The crowd laughs because winter is hard and cruelty is warm. Weregild, the price of a life, ran deep in Norse law. But slave women had no weregild. They were property, not persons in the legal sense. And a captured wife, before the law recognized her standing, could be pressed into that lower register. Her husband's death might command payment. Her suffering did not, unless a powerful man decided it did. Law is only justice when someone pays to enforce it. Who wrote the sagas? Men. Who paid the poets? Men. Whose stories did they omit when the mead ran out? You know the answer. And yet there are echoes. A woman's curse preserved in a single stanza. A terse line. She was taken. Between those words lives a universe of pain. She learned the work fast. She learned who hit and who watched. And one night she learned the creak of the door that meant the master came alone. She kept a weaver's knife under the loom, small, sharp, patient. When his shadow filled the threshold, history held its breath. The blade did not save her life, but it carved a story into the beams. Years later, a boy traced the notch with his finger. He asked no questions. He already knew. The capture net was wide. Irish coasts, Scottish isles, Frankish river towns, Slavic hinterlands. Collectors, war bands, jarls, Russ merchants, local allies. Transport, knarrs across the North Sea, riverboats along the Dnieper, winter sleds when ice locked the world. Markets, Dublin, Hedeby, Birka, Staraya Ladoga, Novgorod. Buyers, farmers, chieftains, temple complexes, overseas brokers. Outcomes, domestic slavery, concubinage, forced marriage, resale to Muslim markets via intermediaries. The wives of the defeated warriors moved through these circuits like unwanted stars. Yes, there are tales of captives who became partners, even cherished ones. People are complicated. Power seduces. Trauma bonds. But do not let the exception overwrite the rule. Consent under the sword is not consent. Romance told by the victor is not proof of love. These soft stories are often blankets over a grave. Why did the cruelty recede? Because states grew teeth. Because kings needed subjects, not commodities. Because the church kept books better than chiefs kept oaths. The trade did not vanish. It evolved, moved,
disguised itself. But the Viking Age as we study it, 8th to 11th centuries, slowly closed with consolidation. Laws sharpened, markets narrowed, and the wives of defeated warriors ceased to be the prize every ship sought. So what did Vikings do to the wives of defeated warriors? They took them, they sold them, they forced them into beds, into bonds, into new names. They used them as treaties. They broke them to break communities. Beyond cruelty? Yes, because it was cruelty organized, cruelty monetized, cruelty normalized. And yet, some lived. Some carved small freedoms out of large cages. Some raised children who remembered the language their mothers mourned in. Survival is also a saga, even when no skald sings it. We stand on layered ground. Sagas, Njal saga, Laxdala saga, Orkneyinga saga, late, literary, but resonant. Law codes, Gragas, and later Christian-era codes that hint at earlier norms. Archaeology, Birka, Hedeby, Dublin, Cowpang, weights, graves, isotopes, tools. External observers, Ahmad ibn Fadlan, Ibn Rusta, Adam of Bremen, biased but invaluable. Modern syntheses, Elsa Rosedal's The Vikings, James Graham Campbell's The Viking World, and works on medieval slavery by scholars like Judith Jesch and Neil Price, contextualizing gender and ritual. We triangulate. We accept ambiguity where we must. We refuse it where the bones, the coins, and the lines of law agree. The lesson is not that Vikings were uniquely monstrous. The lesson is that power without restraint makes monsters routine. When wives became strategies, when children became ledgers, when law and market shook hands, cruelty found its office. Today, the forms are different, but the temptation is the same: to file people into columns of profit and loss, to turn grief into governance, to make a human into an instrument. If this unearthed Viking shadows for you, like and subscribe for the series, because we're not done. Next time, we step into another threshold the sagas leave ajar, and you won't want to face it alone.